Her touch said everything her words couldn't. It started in the quiet hum of a late afternoon cafe, the kind of place where the espresso machine never stopped sighing and sunlight dripped like honey across the tables. I'd come there out of habit, chasing silence after a long day, but then she walked in, and suddenly silence had a pulse. She didn't notice me at first. Or maybe she did and just pretended not to. Either way, the air shifted when she stepped inside, that calm, self-contained grace that older women carry like memory. Her hair was tied loosely, a few strands brushing her cheek. The years hadn't dimmed her, only refined her. She looked like someone who'd learned how to stand still in a world that rushed past her. When she ordered, her voice was low, the kind of tone that made people listen even if she was just asking for a coffee. I caught myself watching the way her hand rested on the counter, steady and sure. I shouldn't have stared. But I did. She turned. Our eyes met, just for a second too long. There was a flicker of recognition, or maybe curiosity, before she smiled, polite, restrained, but real. It felt like being seen, and I didn't realize until then how much I'd missed that. She chose the table beside mine, though there were plenty of others. Maybe coincidence. Maybe not. The space between us was just wide enough for conversation, but neither of us spoke. The quiet filled in for words, the scrape of her spoon, the soft clink of my cup, the rhythmic sound of people coming and going. When her phone buzzed, she ignored it. When mine did, I turned it face down. Eventually, she broke the silence. "You always sit here?" she asked, stirring her coffee though it was already cold. "Most days," I said. "It's quieter near the window." She nodded, her eyes still on the street outside. "I like quiet. It makes things harder to hide." I didn't know what she meant, but the way she said it made my chest tighten, that mix of calm and confession. Her fingers brushed against the table edge, tracing an invisible pattern. I wanted to ask what she was hiding, but I didn't. She looked like someone who had earned her silences. Minutes passed. Then, as she reached for her cup, her sleeve brushed against my hand. Just fabric, nothing more. But it stayed there for a fraction too long, enough for the warmth to register, enough for me to forget what I'd been thinking. She drew back, but not quickly. "Sorry," she said, though her tone didn't sound like regret. Her eyes lifted to mine again, and for the first time, she didn't look composed. There was something else there, a softness, almost a question. "Don't be," I managed, my voice lower than I meant it to be. She smiled, faint, knowing. "You're too young to mean that. And you're too sure I don't," I said before I could stop myself. The words hung there, suspended between us like static. She didn't answer, but the corner of her mouth curved slightly, approval, amusement, maybe even warning. The cafe felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. I could hear the sound of her breathing over the hum of the espresso machine. Then the bell over the door rang, sharp, sudden. She glanced up, startled, as someone called her name from across the room. And just like that, the moment broke. She stood, smoothing her sleeve, that calm mask sliding back into place. "It was nice talking to you," she said, though we both knew we hadn't really talked at all. Her hand brushed mine once more as she passed, deliberate this time. No words followed it. None were needed. Her touch said everything her words couldn't. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. Or maybe it was, maybe part of me had started walking past that cafe just to check if she was there again. She was. Same window seat, same half-empty cup. But this time, her hair was down, loose around her shoulders. She looked different, not younger, just less guarded. When she noticed me at the door, she gave that small smile again, the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes but still made something tighten in my chest. "Back for the quiet?" she asked when I sat across from her. "Or for you?" I almost said. Instead, I shrugged. "Guess I missed a good light." She tilted her head. "You always notice things like that?" "Only lately." Her gaze softened. "You must be young enough to still think noticing matters." I smiled. "You don't?" Her laugh was quiet, but it lingered. I used to. Then life became about forgetting instead. The words sat between us, heavy but honest. I wanted to ask what she meant, who she was forgetting, but I didn't need to. There was a thin gold band mark still faint on her finger, pale where the ring used to be. We talked around it for a while. About weather, books, places we'd been. The kind of talk that wasn't about the words themselves, but about the pauses between them. She had this habit of looking down when she spoke, as if editing her thoughts before they reached me. Every time her eyes met mine, the rest of the room faded out a little more. She told me she used to teach literature, she said. Stories about people who wanted too much. And now? I asked. Now I just read them, she said with a half smile. It's safer that way. Her hand rested near mine on the table, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off her skin. I didn't move. Neither did she. But when a strand of hair fell across her face, I reached up without thinking and brushed it back. My fingers barely grazed her cheek, but the touch made her inhale sharply, her breath catching for just a second. She didn't pull away right away. When she finally did, her eyes flicked to mine, unreadable. You shouldn't do that, she said softly. Do what? Forget how young you are. The words stung more than I expected. You make it sound like a crime. Maybe not a crime, she said, almost whispering. Just something people will notice. Her tone wasn't scolding, it was protective, like she was warning herself as much as me. But her hand stayed where it was, fingers brushing the back of mine in a way that made it impossible to pretend she didn't feel the same pull. For a moment neither of us moved. The hum of the cafe faded to a low blur, just her breathing, steady and near. The scent of her perfume was faint, something floral but worn in, like a memory that refused to fade. Then she sighed quietly. I shouldn't be here this long. Then why are you? She looked down, tracing the rim of her cup. Because you listen. Her words settled into me like warmth spreading through cold hands. She stood to leave, gathering her coat, and as she passed behind my chair, her fingers brushed the back of my shoulder, slow, deliberate. A thank you, maybe? Or something braver. It was a small touch. But it stayed. Longer than it should have. Variant, standard, title, Her touch said everything her words couldn't. Part 3, Heightening Suspense. ID, 76130. The rain came without warning, a sudden, heavy curtain that trapped us inside the cafe. Most people left in a hurry, but she stayed. So did I. The windows blurred with streaks of water, the world outside dissolving into color and motion. Inside, it was just us, the low hum of jazz from the speaker, and the smell of coffee gone cold. She sat across from me, her coat draped over the chair, sleeves rolled up as if she'd decided to stop pretending she wasn't staying. You'll get caught in it if you leave now, I said. Her eyes met mine. Maybe that's the point. I wanted to ask what she meant, but before I could, the door swung open. A man stepped in, mid-40s, familiar in that vague way strangers sometimes are. He looked at her, surprise flashing across his face. I thought that was you. Her smile froze, polite but tense. Hello, David. His gaze flicked between us. Didn't know you still came here. Occasionally, she said lightly, though her fingers tightened around her cup. I could feel the change, the distance she suddenly put between us, subtle but sharp. He nodded at me. Your student? Just a friend, she said too quickly. The words stung more than I expected. I looked down at the table, pretending to check my phone. He didn't stay long, just enough to make the silence afterward feel heavier than before. When he finally left, she exhaled, her shoulders loosening. He's an old colleague, she said. He talks too much. I wanted to say so do people who are nervous, but instead, I just nodded. Her eyes softened, as if she'd heard the thought anyway. For a while, we didn't speak. The rain grew louder, drumming against the glass. When she leaned forward, her hand brushed mine, light at first, then firmer when I didn't pull away. I could feel her pulse through the skin of her wrist, steady but quick. "You shouldn't let things like that bother you," she said quietly. "What things?" "The way people see what they want to see." Her voice was softer now, almost lost in the sound of rain. Her face was close enough that I could see the faintest line at the corner of her mouth when she smiled, the trace of something she tried to hide, guilt, maybe, or fear. I swallowed. "Does it bother you?" She hesitated. "Only when it starts to feel real." Her words sat between us like a confession neither of us was ready to claim. I could smell the faint warmth of her perfume, something subtle and familiar, and when she looked up, her eyes didn't waver. The space between us disappeared almost on its own, like gravity had made the choice. Her breath brushed against my jaw when she spoke again. "We should stop." I didn't move. "Then why don't we?" Her lips parted slightly, and for a heartbeat the world stopped. Her hand was still against mine, her body angled forward, everything in her posture saying yes while her words tried to hold the line. Then a sound, the buzz of her phone. She flinched, pulling back fast, the moment cracking open. The light from the screen glowed against her skin before she turned it face down. We both sat there, caught between relief and regret. Outside, the rain eased to a whisper, and she reached for her coat. "I should go," she murmured. But as she stood, she touched my hand again, not by accident this time. A slow, deliberate trace across my fingers. "We shouldn't," she whispered. "I know." And yet neither of us let go. "Would you like me to continue with prompt 4, the slip, crossing the line, 500 words, next? Variant, standard, title, Her touch said everything her words couldn't, part 4, nearing the climax. ID, 76131. I didn't see her for a week after that. Not at the cafe, not walking past the bookstore where she sometimes lingered. It shouldn't have mattered, we hadn't promised anything, but the silence settled into me like a fever. When she finally did appear, it was after hours. The cafe lights were dim, chairs stacked on tables, the rain just beginning again outside. She stood by the door, hair damp, eyes searching. "You're still here," she said. I could say the same. She hesitated before crossing the room. "I wasn't sure I should come." "Then why did you?" Her smile barely held. "Because pretending not to miss something doesn't make it go away." She sat down slowly, as if testing the distance between us. The air was heavy with the smell of rain and coffee grounds. For a moment, we just listened to it, the quiet, the hum, the sound of being alone together again. "You've been avoiding me," I said finally. She looked down at her hands. "Avoiding is easier than explaining." "What's there to explain?" "That this shouldn't be happening." I leaned forward. "But it is." Her eyes flicked up, startled, almost afraid. "You don't understand how this looks." "Then help me understand." The silence stretched, taut as a wire. She ran her fingers through her hair, exhaling shakily. "I spent half my life doing what looked right. And now," she trailed off, shaking her head, "now I can't decide if this feels like a mistake or the first honest thing I've done in years." Her voice cracked on the last word, and something inside me broke with it. I reached across the table, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. She didn't move, didn't breathe. My thumb grazed her cheek, tracing the faint warmth of her skin. "You don't have to decide right now," I said. Her eyes fluttered shut, just for a second. When she opened them again, there was something fierce in them, longing, fear, everything she tried to hide. "You make it sound so simple." "It isn't," I whispered. "But I don't want to keep pretending." Her breath trembled. "Neither do I." We stood at the same time. The chair legs scraped softly against the floor. She stepped closer, close enough that her coat brushed against my arm, close enough that I could feel the heat of her body through the space between us. She tilted her head up slightly, eyes locked on mine. My heart thudded hard enough that I was sure she could feel it. Her hand found my chest, fingers curling lightly in the fabric of my shirt. "This can't go anywhere," she murmured. Then let it stay here, I said. Her lips parted, and for a heartbeat, everything stopped, the rain, the world, even sound itself. She leaned in, breath warm against my skin, her forehead almost touching mine. I could smell her perfume, faint and intimate, the scent of something that wasn't supposed to happen. Tell me to stop, she whispered. I didn't. Couldn't. Her eyes closed, her hand tightening over my heart. And then, the sound of keys rattling at the door. The barista's voice, calling out from the entrance. Sorry, we're closed. Oh, didn't realize anyone was still. She stepped back fast, hand falling away, her breathing unsteady. I turned toward the window, the reflection of her face still inches from mine. Either of us spoke. But the distance between us had already changed. For good. Would you like me to continue with prompt 5, the fallout, emotional consequence, 500 words, next? The cafe felt different after that night, brighter somehow, louder. Or maybe I was just more aware of how quiet it had been when it was only us. She came in a few days later, earlier than usual, eyes restless. I knew before she spoke that something had shifted. She didn't sit across from me this time, she stood, clutching her phone like it might anchor her. I shouldn't have come, she said. Then why are you here? Her answer came out low, almost breaking. Because you deserve to hear it from me before someone else does. The air thinned. I waited. David saw us, she said finally. That night in the rain. He told my department head. The words landed heavy, not like a blow, but like something you couldn't take back once it was said aloud. I stared at her, trying to find the right reaction, but she looked like she'd already imagined every version of it. You're not even my student, I said, half to reassure, half to protest the absurdity. It doesn't matter, she whispered. It's the story they'll tell that counts. She turned away, arms crossed, trembling slightly though the room was warm. I could see the way her fingers pressed into her sleeves, holding herself together. I thought I could handle people talking. I can't. Her voice cracked on the last word. I stood, closing the distance between us before I could think better of it. You don't have to handle it alone. That's the problem, she said, facing me now. You make me forget what's safe. We were inches apart. Her breath brushed my collar, shallow and quick. My hand lifted, not to touch, just hovering near her arm. I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. I'm not sorry for any of it, I said quietly. She let out a shaky laugh, eyes glistening. You should be. Are you? Her lips parted, but no answer came. Instead, she stepped closer, so close I could feel her heartbeat against mine. Every word, every argument dissolved into silence. This isn't fair to you, she whispered. You don't even know what you're giving up. Then tell me. Her hand found my chest again, fingers trembling. A reputation. A job. A life I've spent years keeping steady. And still you came back, I said. She closed her eyes, and when she spoke again, her voice barely held. Because I couldn't stop thinking about you. It wasn't loud, but it was enough to undo every rule between us. For a moment, everything else faded, the risk, the fear, the invisible lines we'd drawn. I reached up, brushing a tear from her cheek with my thumb. Her breath caught. Say something, she whispered. I think you just did. Her eyes opened, glassy but fierce. Then what happens now? Before I could answer, the cafe door opened, the bells chimed slicing through the silence. David again, standing there with that knowing look, the kind that says I told you so. She stepped back, fast, but his expression said he'd already seen enough. The damage was done. And still, even as she turned to leave, her hand brushed mine one last time. Not apology. Not goodbye. Just an unfinished promise either of us dared speak. The next few days blurred. She didn't come to the cafe, and I didn't try to reach her. Every time the bell above the door rang, I looked up, half hope, half dread. When she finally appeared, it wasn't quiet confidence this time. She looked shaken, her hair loosely tied, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. I can't fix it, she said before I could speak. They've decided what they think. I rose from my seat, but she lifted a hand, stopping me. Don't. If anyone sees us, let them, I said. Her voice softened. You don't know what that means for me. I stepped closer anyway, lowering my tone. Then tell me to walk away. She didn't. Her silence said enough. The cafe was nearly empty. The rain outside matched the pulse between us. She moved closer, maybe without realizing it, until I could feel the warmth of her arm against mine. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Because I don't want to keep pretending I don't care. Her breath caught, eyes flicking to my mouth before she looked away. You think this is about wanting? Isn't it? Her laugh was small, fragile. It's about everything I said I'd never let myself feel again. I reached up, brushing her sleeve, a careful, trembling gesture. Then maybe you should. Her eyes met mine, steady now, searching. You'd lose nothing. I'd lose everything. I shook my head. You'd still have yourself. She exhaled, shaking slightly. That's not how it works. People see what they want, and they don't forgive women my age for wanting something that doesn't fit the rules. I didn't answer. Instead, I stepped even closer, the distance between us barely a breath. The air thickened, filled with the scent of her perfume, faint, steady, undeniably hers. Tell me this isn't real, I murmured. Her hand trembled as she reached up, brushing my jaw with the back of her fingers. It's too real, she said, voice breaking. That's the problem. For a moment, nothing existed but the space between our faces, charged, dangerous, honest. My heart pounded against her palm as if it could speak what I couldn't say aloud. She leaned in, just slightly, until her forehead rested against mine. Her eyes closed. I could feel her breath, shallow and uneven, on my lips. Every time I leave, she whispered, I tell myself I won't come back. And yet you do. Because I can't stay away from you. The confession hung there, raw, unguarded. I lifted my hand, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. My thumb brushed her cheek. She didn't pull away. The moment was fragile, like a held breath before a storm. Her voice came again, softer now. If we do this, there's no going back. I don't want to go back, I said. She opened her eyes, meeting mine fully, no fear left, just clarity. Then stop hesitating. The air between us vanished. She moved closer, breathless. And just as her lips brushed mine, the sound of the door. David's voice. Don't, she whispered, stepping back, tears bright in her eyes. Not like this. But even as she turned away, I knew the decision had already been made. The storm finally passed, outside and between us. Weeks later, the rumors had burned out, replaced by newer gossip. The cafe stayed the same, chipped tables, the same worn bell, the same quiet corner where everything had changed. I was there again, pretending to read, when she walked in. No hesitation this time. She sat across from me like she used to, no walls, no defenses. Just a faint, tired smile that said she'd fought her battles and chosen peace instead of fear. They offered me time off, she said, stirring her coffee slowly. I think they expected me to disappear for a while. And will you? She looked at me then, eyes soft. No. I'm tired of running from things that make me feel alive. The words lingered in the air, gentle but sure. For a while neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't heavy anymore, it felt like something earned. Her hand rested on the table, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. I reached out, just enough for my fingers to brush hers. She didn't pull away. You still think this is a mistake? I asked quietly. She smiled, small, wistful. Maybe. But it's mine to make. That made me laugh under my breath, and she joined in, the tension between us easing into something warmer, steadier. Outside, the last drops of rain clung to the window glass, catching the light. I turned my palm upward, and she laced her fingers through mine, no hesitation, no hiding. Her skin was warm against mine, grounding. You know this won't be easy, she murmured. I don't need easy, I said. I just need honest. She looked down, then back up at me, eyes glinting with something like relief. Slowly, she leaned forward, pressing her forehead against mine. It wasn't a kiss, not yet, but it didn't have to be. The closeness said enough. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. You have no idea how much I've wanted this to feel simple. It doesn't have to be simple, I said. Just real. She exhaled, a quiet sound that turned into a laugh. Then she looked at me, really looked, and something in her expression softened completely. She reached up, brushing her fingers along my jaw before resting her palm against my cheek. I think I finally believe you, she said. I turned slightly, just enough for her thumb to graze my lips, a small, wordless promise. We sat there like that, not as teacher and student, not as caution and risk, just two people who'd stopped pretending they weren't meant to find each other. Outside, the world carried on. Inside, it finally felt still. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?